Okay, we're coming to you with the latest statistics through the end of February 2025 in the low country of South Carolina, talking about some positive trends and also some interesting things happening in the balanced market. In particular, we're going to get after the topic of price adjustments, what buyers think, what sellers think, and how that all takes place. So let's get after it. All right, Chris, great to be with you. Love talking about the market with you. I really appreciate how intuitively you study what's going on. And today we want to talk about kind of bringing you up to speed on what's happened in the 2025 market through the end of February, and then talk about this notion of repositioning property that maybe hasn't yet sold in the market, what that looks like, how buyers and sellers interpret price adjustments, et cetera. So we'll get to that in a second. Let's just talk about what's been happening statistically through the end of February. So the number of listings that have come on the market is up from the first 2 months of 2024. So about a 12% increase there. The number of transactions down about 7%. But the number of closed sales is almost dead even from where we were before. We're seeing the number of days on market inch up a little bit. I think that's gone up maybe 12 days. Statistically, it's actually a much bigger percentage than that. 12 days doesn't seem like much, but statistically, there's a jump that's happening there. The good news is that the median sales price is up, the average sales price is up, and yet I know we're going to talk about this as we segue, talking about price adjustments. The overall inventory has climbed. I know a couple videos ago, we talked about the monthly housing supply. Anywhere over a 3-month supply up to a 6-month supply is a balanced market. And there's some fluidity in that. We're now crested over 4% on that. And the overall static inventory, what's available for sale at the end of February, is actually up some 20+%. Right?
Real.
There's more stuff on the market. What does that do? Let's talk about what that does, because let's talk on the seller side first. There's more inventory, which is more competition on the marketplace. And this, again, is a pixelated kind of concept because there are some markets that don't have a ton of inventory, still selling multiple offers, that sort of thing. Other segments have a lot of inventory. What's that do to a seller mentality when there's more inventory? Another house came on like theirs, another house came on like theirs. What's going on in the psyche there, and where do price adjustments come in on that?
I like the word that you said, repositioning. I think repositioning, market positioning, I think that's the mentality as opposed to price adjustments. Price adjustments sound like you did something wrong, and you got to fix it.
Right.
But really the market's changing. And so repositioning a listing with respect to what's happening in the marketplace is super important. So yes, the more the inventory rise happens, the more price adjustments you're going to see. Just last week alone, I mean, there were 142 price adjustments, market repositionings on homes that hit the market
just last week. And
another 31 in villas just last week, just the past 7 days.
Okay.
And another interesting thing that just illustrates that this is kind of the new normal. If you look at last week, how many houses went under contract?
Yeah.
35% of those had a repositioning or a price adjustment before they contracted. So nearly a third of the under contract inventory last week had a price.
So let's talk about that, because one of the notions is I'm a seller, I'm on the market, I'm in earnest. Let's say I'm serious. We use the word motivated, and I think that price drops. Sellers worry like, oh, that's going to make it look like we're desperate or we're overly motivated. That's not who I am. No, I'm a serious seller repositioning my property after a reasonable period of time of exposure and understanding I'm getting feedback. Maybe feedback is from people that actively looked. Maybe it's feedback from people that didn't look, like it didn't get the activity, et cetera. But it's a serious business move to get to that point. And it can have the net effect of leading to a sale, which is what you're seriously trying to pursue, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of sellers, they say up front, I don't want to do a lot of price drops because it'll make my property, it'll make something look, it'll tarnish my property, make it look bad or something like that. And actually, there's some validity to that. But if you look at it a certain way, the price drops that we see that really aren't impactful, the little nominal drops, the silly price drops where you've got 5, 10 drops in a month, and they're all just small little increments, that really doesn't change the positioning, how the market sees the positioning of that listing. And so that is a little taboo. That is a little, the game, like it looks like a game the seller's playing.
Yeah.
But strategic price drops that take into consideration how the market's responded to the listing, and then you're actually repositioning in a place where you feel like the market is resonating and the market will respond. And you do that at certain times. You don't overdo it. You don't underdo it. It's a thoughtful process. It's a smart process. It's part of marketing, actually.
Right. You kind of know when you get to that point. It's sort of the intersection of a seller's drive or motivation to make the sale happen with experience of having been on the market and interpreting sort of in the middle of the game. Okay, where are we? Do we need to make a change on that? And you and I have always kind of pursued this notion that, again, not these little sort of incremental, small token kind of price adjustments, but if you're getting activity on the property, but no one's pulling the trigger, you got no offers, so you're getting reasonable traffic, but no offers, we've kind of looked at it and said, once you had a tested period of time in the market, maybe upwards of a 5% adjustment would reposition it sufficiently to turn that interest over the threshold and say, okay, now we're going to start making offers. Now we're not going to throw up false objections and say, well, I kind of liked it, but I wish it had a new coat of paint or whatever. That really helps. But what's the other scenario? If that's not happening, what happens if you have situations where you're basically no one is showing up, let alone no offers?
If you're in a market where other sales are taking place,
correct,
you have to gauge the whole market. But if you're the one that's not moving and other sales are taking place and foot traffic is zero,
right,
the people aren't coming in to see the house, then that's at least a 10% adjustment to maybe get re-engaged in the market. The reality is everything will sell
right
at the price, but it's finding where it is. So it's paying attention to the market, responding to the market at the right time. And I think that helps reposition a listing for success.
That's not an easy recommendation. We always want for the sellers to be able to sell at full market value. It's not an easy sort of knee-jerk, let's just go ahead and set this. It's a thoughtful conversation about where they are. And sometimes that conversation is determining where the seller is on what's the most important thing for them. Is it price? I get the most I possibly can. Or is it time? Meaning I'm starting to run out of time here. I'd really like to accelerate the sale. And we've always said, there's probably no greater accelerator in the selling process for a seller than price, because price ultimately speaks to buyers. And I think we look at buyers, and we can switch over to that side of it, is that when buyers are looking at, they see those price adjustments, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the house. It means that and it doesn't mean that they made some silly mistake, et cetera. It just means presumably you've got a seller who is serious and is trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to attract interest here? Mm-hmm. And that doesn't necessarily mean that there's blood in the water. Oh my gosh, they made a 10% price adjustment. There's blood in the water. Let's hit them in the knees and go another 10% below that. Because inevitably, if the price repositioning is correct, the market will respond sometimes, even in those instances, with multiple interest upon that new price point.
Sure. And this is more of a topic now that we're in a balanced market. Mm-hmm. Monthly housing supply, you said earlier, is just over 4 months. So that's a balanced market. That's where we see the rate of appreciation slowing down. Mm-hmm. So the mentality of, I'm just going to hang out and wait for the market to catch up to me, that's a difficult path to take. And that's an unpredictable path to take. And that's a roll of the dice. That's just hoping that somebody that wasn't in the market a couple of weeks ago, they're not paying attention to what else is coming to the market, all of a sudden finds your property and it's the one they have to have. And they don't care how long it's been on the market. But that's kind of a dice roll. Mm-hmm. And also, as we monitor the behavior of buyers, the longer something does sit on the market, the seller should probably expect the negotiations to influence the sale price to list price ratio. Mm-hmm. And the sale price to list price ratio is still right now around 98%. Right. But if you look at the sale price to original list price ratio, it's around 95%. Mm-hmm. If you got further deeper into that study, the longer a property sits on the market, that ratio is going down.
Yeah.
The quicker something sells, the higher that ratio is. So those averages speak to the whole market, but time on market really comes into play.
Yeah, and I think that's something considerate for sellers is, a ultimately you may need to experience some reduction in where this property is going to sell. Do you want to hold your current price and extend your period of time of the market where buyers might start wondering, well, now why isn't that house selling? That's probably sending the wrong signal to the marketplace, as opposed to, yeah, I've given this a reasonable period of time. We haven't quite gotten the buyers that we're looking for. Let's reposition this thing and see if we can't accelerate that process so buyers don't wonder, boy, it's overpriced and there might be something wrong with it. It's more of a, hey, maybe that price didn't resonate with me. Right. And now it does. Right. It makes sense for me. And that starts to build some urgency for performance.
And one final point, we've been tracking the average sale price and the median sale price over the last few years. It's really held up nicely. So we're not talking about we've slid down to this low here and we're trying to build prices back up. I mean, prices are historically high.
Yeah.
And so take advantage of that, even though you might have to do a price adjustment, even though a repositioning might need to take place in order to sell within a reasonable amount of time, you're still at a price where 5 years ago, you would have been so excited.
Yes. So 100%. You're looking at the average sales price jumping through the end of February up some 14% from where it closed at the end of February of 2024. The median sales price up 7%. So it's not like seeing that it was an impressive figure about the number of price adjustments that have been there is all of a sudden indicating the market is sliding. It's basically just indicating, hey, maybe some sellers need to have a little sense of reality of, hey, you can't keep ratcheting this thing up too aggressively. And if you want to sell, you want to appeal to the market, repositioning it is the right thing to do.
Great.
All right, Chris, we'll keep monitoring. Guys, thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you guys again soon.